Welcome to Deltek's Virtual Insight 2020, Shaping the Future of Your Business with Costpoint Extensibility. My name is Stephen Franzoni, Senior Consultant for Premier Consulting and Integration. We have 4 objectives for today's session. The first, to understand what an extensibility is. Second, to familiarize you with the ways an extensibility can be used to enhance Costpoint and your business process. Third, to get a brief introduction to the tools used for developing Costpoint extensibilities. And last, to understand the process of creating a Costpoint extensibility so you can have realistic expectations of the time and effort that is needed in order to get a quality extensibility into production. The first question is, what is an extensibility? In dictionary terms, it's the ability to be extended or stretched. However, computing, it's the quality of software being designed to allow the addition of new capabilities or functionality without affecting the original code. So we're essentially stretching it beyond the original code build. To better understand the concept of extensibility, I want you to imagine a house. A house is laid out in a particular way. You may have a kitchen, a dining room, a bedroom, a bathroom, and when you bought this house, it met your need. However, over time, the requirements change. Maybe you need an extra room, you had a child, or you found yourself all of a sudden working from home and you need a home office. One way you can meet the need of the extra room is to physically make changes to the inside of the house by moving walls, knocking one down, building it someplace else. But this is changing the structure of the house. It requires a lot of work, maybe moving the electrical lines, moving plumbing, redoing floors. A better way of meeting your requirement for an extra room is to add on to the exterior of the house. Instead of altering the interior of the house, which changes the dynamic and the internal structure, which can ultimately make it more unstable, you add an extension. The house still remains in the same form, but that extension will meet your need and the extra functionality that's required. I only want you to think of Costpoint as a series of rooms just like a house. We are not going to touch the internal structure. That would make it unstable. The only time the internal structure gets changed is when Deltek does patches, hotfix, or upgrades. We are instead going to add extensions to those rooms. That is what an extensibility is. We're adding functionality through an extensibility. Now, while these extensibilities are outside of the programming structure of the various points of Costpoint, they are still maintained within the Costpoint framework. So they are protected. They're stored in the system. Your tables are stored in the database. However, with this model, Deltek can update the various parts of Costpoint without having to worry about changes were made to enhance the functionality for your company, because those extensions are stored separately. Now that we've talked about what an extensibility is, you're probably wondering, how can I use it? It sounds interesting, but I don't see how I can benefit from extensibility. The first thing you can do is you could add or modify fields in an application. Instead of using the UDEF fields that come with Costpoint, You can embed the data right in the forms. You can add a process to CostPoint. You're not changing any of the processes that are there, you're just adding to them. Good example is the fixed formatting of data after user updates. You can also create your own applications so they have their own menu item directly in the CostPoint menu. Maybe create a separate storage location for company-specific data that really doesn't fit in with any particular application within CostPoint. Let's examine adding a field to an application. The situation: the employee record has very little information about a veteran, mostly for the vet's report. HR wants to know a little bit more about their service. Maybe your company wants to send out a Veterans Day message thanking them for their service. Or maybe you want to match your employees up to projects based on their military service. So you have Navy veterans handling Navy projects because they speak the same language. You can store that data in the UDEF fields, but they are in a different location. You can sort them and group them at that location, but they aren't in the flow of the form we're looking at here. Let's look at the extensibility solution. We can add fields directly to the screen so that they are in the natural flow of information. So instead, our form would look something like this. Now we have a military information box right on the screen and in the flow of entering data. We have our branch, our start date, our rank, and our years of service. We could have gone a step further and moved the discharge release date down after the start date to give a little bit better flow. However, I have to bring up that Deltek does discourage embedding fields into their forms and moving fields around, because when they do patches, hot fixes, or updates, it can adversely affect your extensibility. Their recommendation is to put a tab up at the top and add your data in that tab, so it is still visible and a little better flow than having to go to the user-defined fields. You can do more than just add fields to CostPoint forms. For instance, maybe your employees are missing critical data when they're entering records into CostPoint. A good example would be an employee's email address. With extensibility, you can change the setting of a field to be required. However, you cannot change the setting of a required field to be not required if Deltek requires it. How about the flow that you want to put your information in the CostPoint? It may not match the flow that CostPoint presents the data. You can move the fields around to tailor it to your needs and change the tab order. Have you taken an unused field and used it to store other data? I have yet to see a company that uses every data field that's available. The problem is the data in the field does not match the labeling. You can use extensibility to change the labels of those fields. So now you have the visual cue of what to put in a data element. You don't have to remember to translate the meaning of where the field is. It tells you in the label. Let's look at extending a process. The situation: an employee goes into ESS and updates their contact information. They may just change it from uppercase to mixed case because they think it looks better. Then they enter a phone number that's not in the standardized format that you use for the company. You're going to need to have an HR representative go in and review each changed record and then correct it as necessary, either changing the mixed case back to uppercase or reformatting the phone number if that is incorrect. Now, this may not seem like a big deal for one or two people a month or a week. However, if you're in open enrollment and you have your entire employee base going in there and half of them make changes that need to be corrected, whether it be the mixed case or the phone number formatting, that has the potential for additional errors as the data is re-entered. And if your HR representative has to do this for half of the company, then you're going to end up with an HR representative that looks something like this. Our extensibility solution would be to create a stored procedure that is called that goes through and can change the case of the entries. So it will take it from lowercase to uppercase, and it can evaluate the formatting of the phone number and change it to the correct format automatically. And this is an actual stored procedure that does that. With our extensibility solution, the employee is still going in to ESS. They're making their updates, still switching from uppercase to mixed case, entering phone numbers in the wrong format. However, when they go to save their entries, we call our stored procedure as a part of the save. Their stored procedure will automatically convert everything to uppercase, and it will fix all the phone number formatting. Your HR representative is still going to probably go in and review the changes because there could be certain things that they need to take action on depending on what the employee entered. However, they don't have to do all the re-entry of the data because the system has already taken the action to fix it. Now you have a happy HR representative and you have a great reduction in the chance of an error being created as a result of the data re-entry. A more advanced feature of extensibility is creating your own application. You may be in a situation where you need to store your own data. It's specific to your company, but there's no place in Costpoint to hold it. This data you use to integrate with Costpoint data. So your Costpoint data is either stored in the cloud or on your on-premise database. You pull it down to your computer, either using an ODBC connection, or you may have Cognos reports set up to basically do Excel extracts. You then pull data in from another source, whether it be spreadsheets, an Access database, even a text file, and you integrate that data together, and it spits out an Excel report. And this Excel report has combined the information you want from Costpoint and the information you want from your other data source. We can create a better solution using extensibility. Instead, your data is now going to be stored either on the cloud or in your on-premise database. You can use Cognos to combine your data with the Costpoint data and output the report. Let's look at the benefits of this. First, your data is stored all in one place. You don't have to go searching different locations or different folders on a server to get the data you need. Other Costpoint applications can use your data. You can tie a piece of information to an employee record, to a vendor record, because it's now a part of Costpoint. All you have to do is extend the record set for that particular application. You can use Costpoint security to lock down your data. There are several companies that have a weak security solution for data they store on their servers. A lot of it is unprotected. It sits in spreadsheets, text files, and access databases. And the mode of security that's used is they hide them from the general user population. However, if someone is intuitive enough, they can search around and eventually find it. Cognos enables you to automate and distribute reports. So now instead of having to run your report physically and send it out to people, you can have Cognos maintain all of the calculations and the process of getting the final report. And you can schedule it so it runs it in the middle of the night and emails it out to a distribution list or to individuals so that they have it in their inbox when they arrive in the morning. You can schedule this so the report runs whether you're there or not. Another feature is being able to interface with other systems. By being within the Costpoint framework, you can now use the web interface console to either update your data from other systems or send your data out to other systems. One thing I haven't noted on here is the fact that when you put it into an extensibility, your data, you're maintaining all of the knowledge within the system. However, when you do a manual process, you're relying on the individual. And if that individual were to leave the organization and that knowledge isn't transferred, it could cause issues. The extensibility avoids that scenario. Using everything we've seen up to this point, you could just go crazy and tackle the world. An example of this would be payment processing. You might create a situation where you can go out and mark vouchers for payment. And when you click a button, it packages them up and sends them out. Creates a log record of the fact that you packaged them up and sent them out. You use the web interface console to send the data out. Another third party receives your information, starts working with it, and sends a message back updating your batch record saying, hey, we're ready for you. This is approved. Do your final check stages and let us know when we can send the money. And you do your manual process of whatever you do with checks. You come back, you update your batch record saying, okay, I've done what I've needed to do. Pay it off. And when you save it, it sends another message out to your third-party payment vendor and pays all your other vendors. They come back, update your batch and say, we're done, and here's the date it was finalized. All the manual process of creating individual checks and mailing them out are now done. And it's automated, and you have less manual work to do within your office. Does it sound believable? It is. We've done it. It would be unfair to go through all this and not at least take a short glimpse at the tools that are being used to create extensibilities. The main tool is the Extensibility Designer, essentially the central nervous system of extensibility development. It's from here where you'll develop all the pieces and get them into the different environments. You can create applications, record sets, trees, actions, reports, and messages. The main tool of the Extensibility Designer is your result set tool. This is used to create new record sets or extend current record sets. In the results set tool, you also have a table builder, and this does exactly what it says. It's used to build tables. This is a GUI interface that allows you to put in the name of fields, the type of field, and the size of the field. And once your table is defined, it will create a table in your development environment. It will also create a script that you can use in your package to create the table in your test and production environments. The last thing it does is create the elements within your extensibility that relate to the table. You also have a SQL editor. You can use this to modify the script that was built by the table builder in case you made a mistake in defining your table originally. You also use this to create the store procedures within your package that will be used at the other environments. The last tool is your form designer. The form designer works similar to Crystal Reports or Microsoft Access Forms. You use this to move around your data elements and the labels. The next tool is your Edit App tool. This is used to create applications within Costpoint. Now, the app tool takes all the pieces that you created in the Extensibility Designer and packages them together and assigns them to a menu item. Once your extensibility is created, you need to package it. Now, packaging is required in the cloud. You don't necessarily have to use this in an on-premise environment, but it's highly encouraged because the extensibility packager takes all the different parts of the extensibility and puts it into one file for deployment into the next environment. CloudOps uses this package for deployment. With it, you have the extensibility deployer. The deployer takes your package and deploys the package. So when you deploy it, it takes care of all the steps for you. This is nice in an on-premise environment because you don't have to worry about missing a piece because it's all within the package and the packager knows, or the deployer knows what to do with your package. Now, all the tools in the Extensibility Designer, I've represented about this much. And of what I've represented, I've only talked about this much of their functionality, if that. There's a lot to it. Luckily, Deltek has provided some excellent documentation that you can get through the customer care site. Or you can go out to Deltek University and there are some training modules on using extensibility. The last thing we're going to talk about is the process of getting your extensibility from your brain into production. There are many steps that you need to take in order to build a quality extensibility. This is also known as the software development lifecycle. You want to start off with determining what you're trying to accomplish. Then you want to gather the information, research, then go out there and get everything set up, have properly defined tables and procedures, then start your building. You set it all up in development environment, get it all documented, move it to your test environment, bang on it a lot, get all the issues fixed, with redeployments from the development back into the test. And once you got it rock solid, then you're ready to deploy to production and find out if you were successful. You're probably wondering at this point, well, do I have extensibility? Well, if you're on premise, the answer is yes. Extensibility comes with Costpoint. If you're in the enterprise cloud, yes, you do. That's a part of the package you've purchased is the extensibility, which is access to the administrative tools. If you're Foundations Cloud, I'm sorry you don't have it. However, this is the opportunity to think maybe extensibility is for us. We could really use the enhancements to make our business process and cost point better. While extensibility may already be installed in your system, it does require a license. However, the license is free. You're basically signing an agreement that states that you understand that Deltek is not responsible for your extensibility getting hosed up as a result of a hot fix or a patch or a release. And you may run into this, especially if you are embedding fields or you're moving their stuff around. The best thing is to test your extensibilities when you know hot patches and fixes have been applied to the system. You also have to understand that Deltek, they'll help you out if you're having a problem with the tools. Maybe the tools aren't working, you're not getting the proper access. They will provide support there. However, customer care does not provide support for actual developing the extensibilities. I want to thank you for attending my session. Once again, my name is Stephen Franzoni, Senior Consultant for Premier Consulting Integration. I hope you enjoy the rest of your virtual Insight 2020.